So when we were trying to build Trust Center, we sat down and we tried to get a realistic gauge on what we thought it would take if a company were to build a site that's similar in-house. And we looked at the time it would take, the resources it would take, the bodies, and we tried to give a realistic representation of what we thought that might look like. We've got weeks 1 through 3, we have scoping and stakeholder identification and, all the interdependencies that are there with privacy, security, GRC. I'll let you all read the slides. I don't need to go into each one of them, but it takes time. The long thing is it takes time. We estimated it would take 6 months. And I think that's being pretty conservative in that all of these interdependencies would be solely focused on prioritizing the building of a microsite to house all of your different documents, right? And we all know that there are different things that come into play that, there might be other things that might be prioritized or take your time and attention away from it, and that would cause like the process to be delayed. But this is only to build a microsite. I think that a personal anecdote that I can share is that, what happens as those regulations are evolving or as you all need to make adjustments to different documents, what does that timeline look like by comparison? This ultimately would save you time in the long run, but for instance, when I was at a fintech company, I had my CEO and business come to me and said, "Hey, Kathleen, we want to share data with third-party non-affiliates. How do we do that? Does our privacy policy allow for it?" And I said, "No, it doesn't. We can do it, but we need to update our privacy policy and our GLBA disclosure for those not in the fintech space. It's a financial specific document that would go into the mortgage flow. I worked for a mortgage loan originator, so it would have to be put into the product and the doc flow. And it was relatively easy for me to make that update, right? It took me about a day to modify the language so that we would be able to do that. But then I was ready to go, and I went to my liaison between the legal team and the engineering and web marketing team, and I said, "Hey, we need to get these live because as soon as they go live, we need to wait 30 days for our borrowers to have the ability to opt out of that data sharing. We have to provide notification and give the 30 days for them to do that." "Okay, no problem." She said, "Kathleen, I can't get you into this sprint. I might be able to get you into the next sprint, but we can definitely get you in by the third sprint." Now, each sprint was 2 weeks long. So already, think about it. It would be 30 days from the time the document went live. Each sprint's 2 weeks long. They might be able to get me in within a month, but they certainly could get me in within a month and a half. And then the clock starts for 30 days. So that would be 2.5 months for our privacy policy to, for us to be able to share data with third-party non-affiliates. And I can tell you, and maybe this is something where you all are, you understand and you've sat in my seat. When I brought that back to business didn't hear logistically, we can't meet this requirement for a month and a half. And they knew that I couldn't change the regulation. But it was like, legal's the blocker. Legal's going to take 2.5 months before we can do what we want to do and get business rolling, right? That was a tough pill to swallow. And no matter how much I said, "Hey, no, it's not me," they didn't hear that. So I wish that I would have been able to quickly modify that document by myself in something like a trust center that would have been housed by me, and I could be agile and quick and make that update as needed, but it didn't exist. And so I would have loved to have that. But I think that story also highlights the number of interdependencies that are required to build something like this, right? We have, business, we have legal, we have compliance, we had the liaison, we had engineering, we had web marketing, all of these things. And I think with this slide, you can see not only it would take time to build the trust center, but also requires the interdependency of a lot of different teams and a lot of different people. And what I highlighted was just one policy. It was one change to one policy. Mind you, we talked about 75% of the world population being covered by different privacy regulations, right? That's a lot of different policies to update consistently. So as the world ever changes and ever evolves, it really highlights the need for us to be agile and to be able to have more control over the process of getting policies live and in a compliant fashion as quickly as possible. So you can see they kind of look like paw prints. They're meant to be people. But as I said, we're trying to highlight the teams between privacy, marketing, legal, security, IT, web, and what it would look like, again, if somebody were to solely be focused on the building of a microsite or a trust center within their own organization.